Hi guys, I'm BenzeneBen and I find myself today at the Electric Vehicle Experience Centre where Volkswagen have taken over for the day, and I'm going to find out a few bits of information about their range of electric cars, starting off with the e-Golf. Now this is what they're calling 100% electric, 100% Golf. I'm going to find out if that's true for myself. But starting off with some headline figures, the car is putting out 134 brake horsepower, 100 kilowatts of power from its 100% electric power plant. It's also producing 290 Newton meters of torque, which means it gets from 0 to 60 in only 9.6 seconds and onto a top speed of 93 miles an hour. It's actually got a range, a real world range of 124 miles, which is pretty impressive. You can go pretty far on a single charge with this thing. So I'm really looking forward to seeing if this ticks all the Golf boxes. We're going to have a bit of a more in-depth look around the car later, but first let me show you what else they've got here. Moving on to the Golf GTE. This is the other car that I'm going to test drive today. This is the hybrid Golf, and that is really a kind of gap filler between the petrol-powered Golfs and the full electric e-Golf. Now, I would imagine that some of you out there are still skeptical about electric cars. You probably still have some questions, and I do as well, although I feel like every experience I have with an electric car really helps to convince me more that these things really are the future. So this is where the cars are parked, and this is the Golf GTE that I am going to drive first. So, under the bonnet, we have the traditional combustion engine, which is a 1.4 litre four-cylinder engine with a turbocharger that puts out 150 PS, and then that's teamed with the battery, which can put out 102 PS, and combined, that equals 204 PS. Now, I know those numbers don't quite add together in the way you would expect, and to be honest, I'm not sure why, so that's going to be one of the questions I'm going to be asking some of the Volkswagen representatives when I get back. Here we are then, guys, in the Golf GTE. This is actually my first drive in an electric car. I've been in a Tesla and the Renault Zoe E, but never actually driven one before, and the sensation is quite strange. No engine noise, especially pulling away from stationary, is quite an odd experience. But everything else, it must be said, feels very Golf. The seating position feels Golf, the steering wheel, I mean everything in here is exactly as you would find on a Golf GTI, a Golf R, presumably on the e-Golf as well, when we get to have a look at that later. But yeah, everything under the bonnet, at least for the moment, is being powered electrically. Now, when I've just been bopping around the town, it's behaved exactly like a hot hatch or a Golf should. Nice and small, easy for nipping up the inside of buses and selecting the shortest lane for the roundabout. And this is only operating with 102 PS from the electric motors at the moment. However, I do have access to this button down here, and now we can experience a bit more of that Golf flavour. Let's give it the beans. Okay, it still moves. Okay, lights are going green. Let's give it a boot. Bit of a traction light coming on. Yeah, I mean, it's not going to rip your face off, but considering you can drive around in this on full electric power, and then with a push of a button, you can get some of that raw combustion feel. Yeah, I like it. I like it. Just pootling through a little town here. We we're going to switch back into fully electric mode. There we go. I could see how this can kind of become a bit of a fun game. You've also got dials here on your speedo and rev counter to show you how much energy you're regenerating with braking. Heading out towards some country lanes then, where we will see really what this car is made of. I think we're going to push the button though. I think we want all 204 of those horsepowers. Oh, it really gets moving. Let's see what it's like on the brakes. Braking hard. Yeah, solid. Certainly getting off the line in this car is very quick. With that extra electric power giving you that torque, it really does get moving pretty sharpish, as we'll see now. Yeah, this is putting enough of a smile on my face for me to be happy calling it a Golf. It's really fun as well seeing the little graphic showing you where the power is being deployed. Right now I have orange on the front wheels to show me that petrol is powering those, and then with a bit more power as well, blue light comes from the rear, the battery charging those front wheels as well. When I come off, there's green around the front wheels in the reverse direction, showing that the rolling resistance is helping to charge the battery back up. If I brake, that has the same effect as well. So when you're slowing down, you're effectively recharging the car. Obviously that's never going to keep up with how much you use whilst accelerating, but it does mean that you can siphon back a little bit of that expended power. So I suppose as we're getting closer to the end, I should give you a few of my thoughts about the car. I would say it's definitely a Golf. The fact that you can press that button and access the full power of the car, when you're in that mode, it does feel definitely like a Golf. It's playful, everything else feels as it would were you in a GTI, a Golf R. Obviously you're not going to have quite the same performance that those cars provide, but for more circumstances than not, it's going to feel pretty equal. And then it has the almost second personality when it's in full electric mode. It goes completely silent and you're just wafted along with a bit of torque. Very, very interesting. I think now we should go and have a look at the e-Golf and see how that compares without having access to that button. Now, that's powered by a much bigger set of batteries, so the electric side of the car is much more capable than the one in this. But I think there are some questions that need answering. So I've managed to get a hold of Chris, who is the service delivery manager, but has been involved in quite a lot of the different technical sides of the electric vehicles development. So I had a few questions, starting with the Golf GTE, which I've just got back from driving. The 2 horsepower figures, the combustion motor generates 150 PS and the electric side of it generates 100. Why do they not add up as we would expect?
So obviously we have a thing called efficiency, and neither is 100% efficient, and therefore when you add the two together, they don't quite give out what you expect them to give out as a combined figure.
Okay, so that does make sense.
It's the efficiency thing.
Yeah, so I guess nothing's ever really going to be 100%
efficient.
Yeah, okay. So we've actually got the bonnet of the e-Golf open behind us, and hopefully you can talk us through some of the bits and pieces here, because it's not really the sight you would expect to see when opening the bonnet of a regular car.
No, absolutely. So this is really a standard Golf engine bay, as you would see with no engine.
No.
So the bits you see, obviously the orange wires are all the high voltage cables. Okay. So they bring in, the power comes into this module. So this is the high voltage controller, and this controls the motor through these 3 cables, and these 3 cables also supply power back. So we have to remember that when a motor is being driven, it becomes a huge generator. So this actually generates power back and is then put back into the battery. So if you're going down a hill and your foot's off the gas, then your motor becomes a generator, so that adds to efficiencies. This wire goes off to the air conditioning compressor, so we've got an electric air conditioning compressor, so we still get the comfort of air conditioning, but we also get air conditioning whilst the vehicle is stationary, which is something that is unique really to electric cars. So you can switch it on and off. So if the sun comes out and the car's out in the car park, you can switch it on. It'll cool the vehicle down whilst it's stationary in the car park.
No more leaving your car running for 10 minutes to get the aircon.
Absolutely not. However, obviously that takes something out of the battery, of course, unless it's plugged in. If it's plugged in, it just takes it straight from the grid. This box here, this module here is for, so this is the charge controller. So this is cables from the mains charger or the pod charger going to this, and this regulates how much charge goes into the battery.
Okay, so is this what interprets what type of charge you've put it on, whether you've put it on a slow charge or,
So this really controls all of the charging as far as the vehicle's concerned from external sources, obviously this one from internal sources. And then this is your heater.
Yeah.
So obviously in a conventional vehicle we use the heat generated by the engine to heat the vehicle. Yes, there is heat generated by the motor in electrics, but not as much, not nearly as much. So we have to artificially, if you like, heat the water, and that's done electrically as well through a heating element. Obviously, the more you take out of the battery, unfortunately, the less range you will get on that particular function. But again, all this information is fed back to the driver.
Yes.
So as soon as they switch anything on, it's instantly fed back to the driver. So the driver knows that, you know, if they're going up a hill, then you'll see or if they're driving really, really quickly, you'll see the range drop as you would if you switch the air conditioning on or the heater.
Yeah. So you can keep an eye on that and manage it. And
absolutely.
If you're a bit marginal, you should turn the aircon off.
Yeah, and of course there's Ecoplus mode. So absolutely, if you think you're going to struggle to get to your destination, you hit the Ecoplus mode, and absolutely everything's switched off, which is a function which helps the driver.
Yes, of course. So beyond really those 3 bits, everything in here is kind of what you would find in a regular car.
Yeah, expect to see. We've got a cooling system, which we've talked about, a regular radiator, the condenser for the air conditioning system, washers. Everything is really quite conventional in this particular model, So with Golf, you get the choice of many different drive layouts. So petrol, diesel, we've got electric, we've got hybrid, and then we've got things like compressed natural gas, not something we import at the moment. So yeah, with Golf you get absolutely loads and loads of variants.
Okay. All right, thank you very much, Chris. That's been answered a few of my questions. So I hope I've answered a few of your guys too. Now I think I'm going to go and drive this one. Well, that answered a few of my questions. I'm hoping to answer a few of my own when we jump into the e-Golf in a minute. But I think it's really interesting to see how this space develops. As petrol heads, we've seen with cars like the Rimac just how mind-blowing the performance from these can be with that instant acceleration and huge figures for torque. So most people's hang-ups does seem to be around the usability, the range, the charging, this sort of thing. But that technology is improving all the time, and we will see where that goes. But for the moment, let's see if it can really stand up to the test. Is the e-Golf a real Golf? Can something with 100% electric power, no combustion engine, call itself a Golf? Let's find out. Let's jump in. Let's get driving. So we're in drive. Pulling away in one of these things is always a bit of a strange experience because we're suddenly just away. How does this work? Yeah, it must, obviously you would get used to that if you owned an electric car, but having only driven one, well, this is the second time ever, that still feels a bit weird. Now, the performance side of things, it's not going to set your trousers on fire, so I'm a little bit apprehensive, a little bit cynical as to if this car can really wear the Golf badge, because I know a lot of you out there the Golf is very near and dear to your hearts. I'm sure we have a lot of enthusiasts among the subscribers. So some of you at least, are probably a bit dubious about the e-Golf. But I'm going to see if it can lay those fears to rest. Certainly, getting away like that, the instant power, that's really amusing. That's really good fun. I do like that. Whilst the official NEDC figure is 186 miles as the maximum range of this car, Volkswagen seem much happier to quote the real-world figure of 124 miles, which is still quite a lot. You know, that gives you a 60-mile each-way commute, and I hope for your sake you're not doing a 60-mile each-way commute. So range shouldn't really be an issue. Of course, it depends how real-world that real-world driving figure is. I've got 76 miles left in the tank, and we will see how much I have left when I get back. I'm currently scheduled to do 15 miles on this route. If I try and stick to that faithfully, then we should have 61 miles of power left by my maths with a real-world figure. Now, have to give them some slack. There's a good chance I won't be doing the most efficient driving, as I'm interested to see just what this car can do. But still, it'd be interesting to see where that number is at when we return to base. Yes, it only has 135 horsepower, only. In a world where we're used to talking about cars that seem these days have a minimum of 200 horsepower, that doesn't seem like the biggest number. But it's easy to forget that that's more than what you need for pootling around town, going to the shops, doing your commute, doing the school run. And why would you be buying this vehicle if you really wanted that outright performance, that combustion engine noise? You're in the wrong market segment. You might be ideally suited to the GTE. But this thing, certainly straight line performance is more than enough for what you need for doing these little sections of dual carriageway. Being a fully electric car, we don't have what you would find in a conventional car when it comes to the gearbox. This is a 1-speed, so down here on the gear selector, where you would normally find pluses and minuses to go up and down your gears, here we have how you choose between different modes of braking regeneration. So there are 4 modes, if I'm not mistaken, and each of them is a progressive increase in how much energy is regenerated when you both brake and lift off the throttle. So if I just set it into its most extreme mode now to demonstrate, and then if I lift off, you can really feel the nose of the car dip down as it starts to regenerate some of that energy through the wheels. This energy, of course, then feeds back into the battery, allowing you to use that to propel yourself forwards again when you set off. Just experimenting a bit more with these regeneration modes whilst we're on a bit of a high-speed stretch. In the D mode, I can lift off now, and I'm using no power, gaining no power, but maintaining my speed. And then when I switch into the regenerative braking mode, with no foot on the throttle, the car slows down by itself, regenerating that energy to store in the battery. So you can adapt your driving style depending on what you get out of the car, depending on your environment. If you're in a city and you can predict traffic lights are going to change to red ahead of you, you lift off the throttle, no need to brake, slowly come to a hold and regenerate some of that juice for your battery. This is where the e-Golf comes into its own, moving away from a set of lights in traffic. Look, there we go, instantly away. You're going to be able to use that to beat a lot of people off the line, sneak ahead into the lane you want. So in that sense, it really does fulfill the Golf label, the ability to dive up the inside of people, move around a bit more than you might be able to in a larger car, and get to the front of the queue. So definitely some plus points there. One thing I will note is that the lack of engine noise does mean that a lot of that road noise comes through. There's nothing to mask it. Now, if I wasn't making a video, I might be listening to the stereo, which would help alleviate that, but there is that constant drone of road noise. Heading back to the base then, and what are my thoughts about this car? It's definitely more fun than I expected. When I was looking at it, I was in my head very skeptical. Definitely some of those fears have been laid to rest. Certainly you shouldn't buy this car and expect it to be exactly what a Golf GTI is. It's not going to be that. But if you're in the city, it's not going to make an enormous amount of difference for you. Obviously there's a sound difference, but in terms of getting from A to B in a 30-mile-an-hour limit, 0 to 30 times, that sort of thing, this thing, as we're doing now, away from these lights, we're up to 30 before we've even crossed to the other side of the lights. So it has enough performance at these slow speeds. Speaking of which though, if you should be interested in driving the cars that you've seen today, the e-Golf, the GTE, or indeed the Passat GTE or the e-Up, you can head down to the Electronic Vehicle Experience Centre here at Milton Keynes, and they don't just have VW vehicles either. They have a whole range of different vehicles. The centre itself isn't partnered with VW exclusively. There are a number of brands that feature their electronic cars here. So you can come down and take these cars for a drive yourselves. Some of you out there, probably a couple of you, are cynical about this sort of stuff. Well, come and find out for yourself. I'm meters away from the charging station. Let's have a bit of a look on the range situation. We made it back to base. 53 miles remaining on the range. We started with 76, did a 15-mile journey. I did go a little bit further, took a bit of a detour, and like I said, we weren't driving the most economical, but we got a figure of 53, so used 9 or so miles more than expected, but given how things went, I think that's reasonable. I would be fairly confident in the range figure given by VW of 124 miles of range on this. Certainly a lot more confident than I would be in the normal sort of MPG figures you get from manufacturers. I think we all know those are ambitious, to say the least. That said, I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions as well. I would love to hear from you what you think about this. Electric cars, hybrid cars, petrol cars, the future of this technology. Do you own one of these cars? Are you thinking about it? Have you owned one in the past and got rid of it? Maybe you didn't like it at all and you've gone back to pure petrol. I'd love to hear from you, so let me know down in the comments what you thought. I'm going to wrap this one up for today. So thank you very much for watching. Subscribe if you haven't, and I will be back again on the channel soon, but you'll probably see someone else's face tomorrow. Cheers!